the fact of the matter is that Peter was asking all the right questions. Who pays for this? And you hear from the White House spokesperson that this is just being essentially added to our debt, but because we've made such great progress on drawing down the debt and talking about the 1.7 trillion reduction in overall deficits, keep in mind we're coming from all of that COVID relief that had unnaturally sent the deficit and the overall debt ballooning. So it isn't so much that they were being vigilant about spending here. They just were not spending nearly as much. So we're still dealing with $1 trillion plus deficits. But I want you to hear the impact of what she's saying. Because we've drawn our credit line down, so to speak, we're going to use that and the gain we have from that to essentially pay for this, which is essentially taking a Visa credit line and saying you've paid it off, so now we can go out shopping again and buy some other goodies. In this case, the goodies are student loan relief to the tune of $10,000 for individual borrowers making 125,000 or less. So paying for an obligation with debt and a credit line. Dave Dodson, the Stanford School of Business lecturer, and much, much more. Dave, that doesn't sound like good math to me. What do you think?
No, it doesn't. But I'm probably going to disappoint everybody because the Republicans want the number to be really high and the Democrats want the number to be really high. But it's not going to be 300 million because we're thinking about this not the way a creditor would think about it. So about 24% of those loans that are affected by this, it's just smoke and mirrors, Neil, because those are people who are not paying their student loans anyway. They're already in default or not paying. And furthermore, there's a lot of forgiveness programs already out there.
Right.
And by the way, you can't get rid of a student loan through bankruptcy. So the government, if you can imagine this, Neil, the government pays third parties, private companies, to go out and collect student loans. For every dollar they collect, it costs us, the taxpayers, $30. $1, we have to pay $30. So the number's not as big as everybody thinks it is, but it's clearly a political move. I mean, you got to give Biden credit. I mean, he did promise he was going to do this, so he's doing what he said he was going to do. But the timing right before the midterms election is not a coincidence.
All right. So the politics beyond that, Professor, one of the things I think is that the numbers were, and this is what you're disputing, that this will cost over 10 years, $300 billion. Some go as high as almost $1 trillion. I see what you're saying there, that how this staggers out and how it's not really just cash out there. But the notion that whatever does get spent or committed to this is just being piled on to our debt, isn't that like, the administration bragging about bringing down our credit line or the amount we owe, but we still have this overall room to spend more because our credit line is still high? What do you make of that?
Absolutely. I mean, we're talking about, pushing $30 trillion in debt, and we're going to add just more to it. There is a consequence to all this. Like you said, we got a little room on our line of credit, so we're just going to give it out to other people. And even though it was a campaign promise, and I acknowledge that Biden did say this is what he was going to do.
Indeed.
So that was a campaign promise, but it's sort of a crazy thing to go and say to somebody, here's the deal. If you want to go to college, we'll help you pay for it in, frankly, a pretty generous way. And if you want to do it, you can do it. And if you don't have to go to college. OK, and I realize that seems kind of harsh, but that was kind of the deal. It was certainly the deal when I went to college and when you went to college. And now people are saying, well, no, I don't want to pay it. And there's just something sort of fundamental about the American system that says, you don't actually get to do that.
What I wonder about, Professor, is the series of expectations that are not realized. The people who say, wait, what you did for them, you got to do for me. You're not doing this for me. But people then start thinking, all right, I'm going to stop paying my college loans as well and wait for the next train to stop by. And others might say, hey, I'm behind on my mortgage payments. I need relief. Or we have 20 million Americans now who are behind on their utility. They need relief now. So what does this potentially cycle through?
Well, that's right, Neil. And what we're forgetting is that it's not as if we as a society, and certainly the federal government, hasn't already considered this issue. There are already relief programs in place for people who are truly in need, and also people who are deciding that they're going to take their life and contribute to us, to contribute to our country in a special way. They're going to be a school teacher. They're going to go to the military. They're going to go to public service. We've already created programs for all those people. And that seems like a pretty caring nation. And now we're saying, oh, well, we're going to do it for everybody also. right before the midterm elections just feels kind of counter to what we stand for. And of course, we haven't even talked about what I think is sort of the perverse impact this is going to have on inflation.
And what is that?
Well, the actual amount of money that is going to be forgiven over a long period of time is going to have no impact on inflation, because these are the people that are not spenders. They're in their lowest spending. There are workers. But they represent about 2% of the spending and 16% of the workforce. And right now, we have an economy where we need to get people back to work. And I don't think somebody's going to say, "Oh, well, my student loan's forgiven, so I'm not going to take a job." But maybe it's 40 hours, and maybe the 32 hours still works pretty well. And we have a labor shortage. So how it's going to affect inflation is not that they're going to go out and buy a bunch of stuff. I think what's going to happen is it's going to continue to bid up labor costs, which is going to affect us in October, November, December.
That's very interesting. That's very interesting. Dave Dodson, thank you very, very much. The Stanford School of Business, big lecturer there. I wish I had professors like him when I was in school. Would have slid by maybe a little better than I did.